Good evening. Welcome to the Barber Shop. I am your host, Dr. Christopher Salute. Tonight we are talking about a wonderfully controversial topic, which I am always excited to talk about. We are talking about body positive events and body positive groups. So while you are hanging out with us, please bear with me while I share the show on all of the Instagrams and TikToks and Facebooks and all those wonderful things. So let's see. We're live now. We're going to share it to some groups and see how those groups like it. As you know, the show is brought to you by All Things Bold, the Going Bold Network, Bold Magazine, Fabulous Magazine, all of the wonderful Bold entities like That Professor Life Consulting, and all those goodies. So we are sharing the show to a couple of different groups. So just give me a second. And I am going to encourage everyone, whether you're on TikTok, Facebook, whatever, talk to us about what you think about these events. Now, the original goal was for me to have some folks on the show who had been to some of these events, who had, various opinions. Ash Massacre says hola Ash. So the goal was to have some folks on the show who had been to some body positive events, size acceptance events, all those types of things. And unfortunately, we just couldn't get folks who could do it, or we didn't get a lot of feedback anyway from folks who were interested in doing the show. But my goal was to not have a biased show with just me. My goal was to have everybody come in and talk about this particular topic. And it's here's the thing. It's it's the summertime. There are a lot of size acceptance and body positive events going on in the summertime. So I think it's an important conversation to have for sure. But I also think it's important to have it all year round, because I think, kind of like we had that conversation about Pride on my show a couple of weeks ago. We tend to think about these things when it's, body positivity, season, right? Or bash season, or, whatever. And we don't tend to think about these things all year round. And I think it's important to really have those conversations, because these are definitely conversations that affect us throughout the year. So before we get the show started, how I like to do, let's just do a little either prayer or a moment of silence. I like to do a prayer. There's just a lot going on in the world right now, whether it be Roe v. Wade or Uvalde or Ukraine or just a million things that are going on with the world. Let's quickly take a moment of silence and or a prayer, if you're a prayer, and just put some positive energy out into the world. Okay, awesome. I like to pray for longer, but I don't want the dead silence on the show. Thanks for sharing some positive love with me. So what's going on with me? Got a lot going on. Teaching, job's going great. Got a book that just came out a couple of weeks ago. So for some reason, the link is broken on Amazon, but my publisher is working on that. So feel free to check that out. New books coming out soon. Bold and Fabulous are coming back. We're writing some great articles about, everything that's going on in the world. Relationship life's going great, working on this silly house all day. So amongst all these different things, Miss Piggy says, thank you, Jesus. Amongst all these different things going on, I thought to myself, it's the summertime. There are a lot of these bashes going on, a lot of these body positive events. And as you know, I live in Las Vegas, and it's a very popular place for a very popular body positive group that is, has been around. And let me frame this for you so that you understand where I'm coming from. So I still own, even though it's very dormant, one of the, if not the largest plus size media group in the world. We own 3 plus size magazines, a bunch of meetup groups, which are inactive right now, a couple of podcast networks. We have a branding agency. We work with many brands. We have, a lot of folks that still want to work with us. Unfortunately, I just don't know where I'm taking the brand right now. So I'm not coming at this body positive game and all these events with this negative type of attitude. I want to come at it with kind of a realistic expectation of what we should expect from these body positive events. And there's the good, the bad, and the not so great. So as we always do, there are a couple of movies that came to mind, and there's not a lot of movies and TV shows that feature plus size anything, but the three movies that I came up with to kind of illustrate the point before we get into the beef of the conversation were Aidy Bryant's Shrill on Hulu, which we love. If you haven't watched Shrill yet, you must watch Shrill. I think it's season 1 and 2. There's no season 3, but I hear they might be coming out with a new season because there's like a resurgence of popularity coming into Shrill as body positive events and size acceptance groups are becoming more and more popular. It's about a wonderful woman who Aidy Bryant's brilliant in it. She really starts to own herself, own her sexuality, own her body, own her life as a plus size woman or as a fat woman. And it's really, it's a good TV show. And in the TV show, she goes to like this bash style, pool party, but it's a little different than we normally see because it was mostly women, and it was different. When you introduce men into the equation, it becomes a different kind of event, right? I see you, football fan. I will read that in a second. The second movie I want to talk about is Summer Cats. They didn't have a group. There really was not a lot of plus size kind of things that I could think about with regard to movies. But in Summer Catch, one of the minor characters, he loves plus size women, and they kind of tease him and make fun of him and all these types of things. And he just comes out by the end as like, hey, I'm this guy and blah 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 blah. But I want to be aware that when we say come out, it's not the same as coming out, right? I mean, he comes out with his preference, but it's not the same as coming out. And we have a lot of folks who go to these plus size events as men, and they say, oh, I'm coming out, I like plus size women, and you just don't. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't need a trophy for liking plus size women. And then last but not least, the only other TV show or movie I could think of was Law and Order. I think Law and Order SVU had it may have been Criminal Minds. I apologize. I don't remember exactly. Now I should know. But they did a Vegas bash style episode where a guy was smothered to death by a plus size woman, and it kind of painted the bashes in kind of an interesting light, and good or bad, it was a very interesting episode. It wasn't Law and Order, come to think of it, because it was a new format. They had like 3 different cases. It might have been Criminal Minds, but anyway, those are the 3 movies and TV shows that I could think of. There's not many that focus on plus size groups, plus size events, and I think the reason is because they're kind of budding, right? There's not a lot of plus size events out there. There's not a lot of plus size groups out there for folks who want to really be body positive and size accepted. Now, the reason for that, or one of the reasons for that, is because the groups tend to break up, and one of the reasons that the groups tend to break up is because there's a lot of drama and a lot of things that go on. So to football fans' point, I went to my first bash last year in Chicago. I know that bash well. I doubt I will try it again. So I know that group very well. They don't like me. I don't like them. Probably when I was going, one of the better groups with regard to safety, but run now by a complete terrible person. And she's just an awful person. And I remember trying to get some folks to their rooms because they were super drunk, and trying to get them home to their room safely. And she just didn't care. She didn't care about people. So just kind of awful. So what prompted this conversation to happen, right? What prompted me to think, hey, let's talk about these body positive events. Let's talk about these body positive groups, and let's shed some light on them. And I want you to come comment. Look, if you have a comment that disagrees with me, then please, by all means, come at me. Let's talk about it in a way that's that's valuable. I see before we even get started, I see Ash puts up. I've seen a lot of events, but from what people talk about them, it turns from a BOPO event to a fetish event for some of the people that come. So I think you need to be aware, to your point, Ash, that there are events that are truly body positive, and there are events that are just, not body positive, right? So football fan says there was not much that felt body positively. Hate that for you, but love that you're commenting and brave enough to say it, right? So here's where the the conversation kind of started in my head, and I thought maybe it's a good time to have this conversation about about these events. So I'm not going to get into the past about who doesn't like me and who doesn't, I don't like them, and yada yada yada. It's not a thing, right? But what I will say is that it's the summertime, and a lot of these events are taking place, yeah. And what we see is a lot of folks who are just, look, the country is getting a couple of things. We're gaining weight, which is fine. Your body gains weight. And we're also finding that as a country, we are getting more and more liberal with the idea that we should be size accepted. And I love that, right? I love that. As somebody who owns these magazines, I love that we're doing that, right? The juxtaposition of what's going on there is also that as people are becoming aware that they are people of size and that there is a place for them, or should be a place for them, there's a lot of misguidance. There's a lot of events and groups that seem body positive and just are not, right? So Ashley says, I went to a body positive event that was a swingers meet. Yeah, so I put together a TikTok that said something similar, and I was advised not to put that up on social media. So we're going to rephrase that. Ray says, lovely. I don't know. Was that lovely to the swingers meet? Which is fine. You're welcome to your opinion. But here's the thing, right? So there are a lot of groups out there that are wonderful. We tried really hard to, when I was at the crux of Bold and really trying to build the brand in a way that was positive. And look, I've made my mistakes too. I'm not going to get into that, but we tried really hard to put together events that were focused on more than just being single and being a person of size, because there's more to you as a person of size, or as anybody, than being an object of affection, right? We put together networking events and yoga and, networking talks and career conversations. And we had focus groups with Macy's and, other brands that were wonderful. And yes, did we do some singles mixers? We sure did. Because you know what? As a man, I had the male gaze, and I didn't realize what I was doing at the time, right? So now Miss Piggy says, and we'll talk about what goes right and what goes wrong. Miss Piggy says, the only thing that bothers me, I've been fat my entire life. My best friend is a size 00, and she was picked on more than me. So it worries me that body positive are just trying to be better. Oof, that kills me. That you come in and you think it's a body positive event and you're getting picked on for being not a person of size. As she says, it was a very awkward time, the swingers event. Yeah, I can appreciate that. So on that note, we love our folks over on TikTok, but I have to say goodbye to TikTok because we are going to head over to Instagram for about 10 minutes, and then you should definitely find the show on YouTube. So if you are not a follower of mine on Instagram, simple. Hit my Instagram button right on my TikTok profile. You can head over to my stories. You don't have to follow me. No worries. You can head over to my stories. You can find the link on YouTube, and it's Going Solo Media right on YouTube, so you can find us out. It's also on my Shorby as well. Miss Piggy says, I'm body positive. I'm just body positive for all sizes. We love that. So we'll talk about that when we move on to the next portion of the show. So we're going to head over to Instagram. And so a lot of great comments coming in. And I think what we're seeing is, a lot of folks were kind of new to this whole body positive space. And that to me troubles me when you're starting to look at events. And I'll tell you why. So there are events here in Vegas. There is, there's a group out here. There's a Discord channel or whatever. I don't even know what Discord. Can somebody tell me what Discord is? Comment to me. Tell me what Discord is. I downloaded it and I never did anything. But there are all these groups, right? And they promote body positivity, right? And what I find is that they are run by or have a very strong male presence. Here's my problem. My problem with that is that most of the events that I've seen that are body positive, right? They exist solely and truly body positive. They exist solely for the purpose of empowering people of size, men, women, whatever, right? Here's the thing. Most folks who are going to be alienated, ostracized, picked on, hurt because they are people of size are not men. They're not. And if you're a male and you're a person of size, I want to tell you right now, I sympathize with you because I grew up as a chunky boy and I'm still a bit of a chunky boy, I can promise you, as a man, you are not being discriminated against because of your size. You may be picked on, sure, but you're not being discriminated against because of your size. Women in this country, and definitely all over the world, but also in this country, are being way more than picked on because they are women of size. They are ostracized. They are discriminated against. They are denied. They're denied career mobility. They are denied they are poked fun of at clubs, at bars. They cannot find a relationship that is not about either a fetish or pity or breadcrumbs, right? There are so many things that women of size combat that men of size do not. So, what am I getting at? If you want to have a true body positive event, fat acceptance, size acceptance, etc., you want to have something that's of value to people of size. What are you going to do? My opinion, my solution, get the men out of the event. Completely take men out of the equation. Now, you might say, well, are there women who are LGBTQ? Does that add a different element because they might be wanting to date, because they might be wanting to date blah, 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 blah. And, the question is, well, no, they're really not, they're really not, there's nothing wrong there because men bring a different element to the table, right? So I see Allie had commented, but then it looks like we lost Allie's comment. Did we lose Allie's comment, Cece? But she was trying to explain to me what Discord was, but maybe she'll come back and she'll explain to me what Discord was. When we start to see a lot of these groups, these events, etc., which are run by or have a very large presence of men, that's when I start to question, is this a body positive group? Is this a fat acceptance group? Is this a size acceptance group? Or is this a group for fetishizers? Is this a single mixers group? To Ashley's point, who was just on TikTok, is this a BBW? God help me, I hate that phrase. BBW swingers club, right? And look, there is nothing wrong. You want to get down and dirty? You want to do some swinging? Go for it, right? You want to go to the lifestyle club? I am all for you being who you want to be. But are you body positive? Are you size acceptance? If you are running that kind of event. And the answer, honestly, my opinion, no. And you're talking to somebody who absolutely has been to these events, has enjoyed these events, has definitely benefited from being at these events and being an object of affection and gotten some attention from these events. And would never do it again. The point of these events should be to empower folks in a way that they find lasting friendships, wonderful activities, they feel like themselves, right? And to some extent, almost every event will have some portion of that, right? I'm not going to say that all events don't have some portion of that, but I think when you put men into the equation, and I'm a man, right? When you put men into the equation, you introduce an element of, I don't want to even say sexuality, because you can have an element of sexuality with all women in the room, but you bring sexuality plus, let's say, in combination with the recipe calls for this male gaze, and the male gaze is going to be a fetishy gaze. Now, I say that because out of the 30 or 40 men who may attend one of these events, right, because it's not a lot of men, there may be 10 to 15 men who really truly get it. They understand you. They love you for more than your body. They're out to meet a long-time, partner, all these things. The other 60%, 70% of these dudes, probably not so much, right? And you're going to wind up having these folks really infiltrate an event that could go off swimmingly and could really be enjoyed by women of size who want to go out and just enjoy themselves and be who they are. The minute you put a man in the room, when two or more women are interested in talking to them, all of the friendship, all of the bond, all of the good stuff that could have happened throughout the weekend goes out the window. It's like they forget that they're there to also make friends, and there's a cattiness that's unmatched by anything I've ever seen in my life. And now, of course, you don't realize it until you're out of it, but the men who are in these groups and in these events, why on earth would they be self-aware enough to put an end to that? Because they've got the attention of 2 people or 3 people or 10 people. And so it's a very, very, intricately complex understanding for them to enjoy that part of the weekend, because they're going to get the attention that they actively seek, right? And so it's really a tough spot to be in when you're trying to put together a body positive event. So I always like to come up with a solution when I'm coming up with a problem, and I want to hear some comments before we get into that point. So a couple of folks have told me, hey, went to an event, wasn't really that great. It was more like a swingers event. Some folks said it wasn't comfortable, but I want to hear from you, right? What are some of the experiences that you've had that have been positive? Have you gotten some long-term friends from a lot of these groups? Have you enjoyed yourself? Have you heard great things? Like, talk to me. Like, I want to bring in the positive as well. I don't want to be a one-sided podcast, right? To that end, Cece, are we doing a break real quick, or are we not doing a break? I'm going to guess from the complete silence, we're not heading to a break. Oh, she messaged me. We're doing a break. Okay. So we're going to come back, get your comments ready, do some positive stuff, talk to me. We're going to take a quick break. This is WGSN-DB, Going Solo Network Radio. I'm your host of The Barber Shop, Dr. Christopher Salute. You're watching Going Bold Wednesdays. We'd love to hear from you. Talk to me when we get back from the break. Tell me about the good, the bad. Tell me about the good. Tell me about how you've had great experiences at size acceptance events and body positive events. I want to hear from you. Let's have these conversations. Let's dig in and let's learn. This is WGSN-DB, Going Solo Radio. Let's take a break. We'll be back with you in a second. And we're back. Whoops, I was just checking some of my messages. We're back on WGSN-DB, Going Solo Network Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Christopher Salute. You are watching The Barber Shop. We are talking about BBW, quote unquote, body positive events, the size acceptance community, events and groups. Are they a good thing? Are they fetish groups? Are they actually body positive? We want to get into some dirt with you. So on that note, I know that we took a quick break. We're only going to be on Instagram for the next minute or two. So if you haven't switched over to our Facebook or our YouTube, just go right to my story. You can hit up my story. I post it every Wednesday whenever I'm doing a show. Go right to YouTube. This way you can comment. You can be part of the show. All these great things. And then you're all set. It looks like Allie had tried to comment, but it looks like she was commenting too many times. And so maybe that's why. But she says, Discord is a social platform that I like to describe as a mix between message forum, AIM, and Zoom. And then she also says, oh, okay, so that's that. But it looks like she's been placed in timeout. I wonder why. Allie, were you obscene? Were you obscene when you were helping to educate on Discord? So we want to hear from you. We want to hear some of the positives, and I'm going to talk about some of the positives too, right? So here's what I'll say. I'll say this. I'll say that there are a lot of guys that I met at some body positive events, or what we call size acceptance events, who truly made an impact in my life. I have long-lasting friendships, a couple for sure. There were also a couple of guys who I thought I was friends with who wound up just being absolute creeps. They spread absolute terrible rumors about me to go date and have sex with women that I was coveting, just, awful, nasty people. I will say that, Cece says, sorry, Allie, I hit the wrong button. Sure you did. That's totally fine. But yeah, Allie was trying to tell us a bit about Discord. So here's the thing. Let's jump off events for a second, because I want to talk both about events and groups. Now, there are a lot of groups out there that can be body positive. And again, I'm going to go with that same token response that I gave earlier. And that is that once you introduce men into these groups, you're going to get an entirely different element of thought, right? And that's why I've actually exited a lot of those groups. So on that note, I'm going to wind up exiting Instagram, speaking of exiting. And if you're on the show, you can actually just hit us up on YouTube. You can talk about us there. You can talk to us there. So let's post this on Instagram. Let's see. Body positive group, or are you being fetishized? Ooh, that'll be a good one. I wonder if Instagram will have a problem with that when I say that. Will they actually let me what's it called? Will they actually let me post that? The word fetishize. We're about to find out. We're going to post it. Let's see. We'll hit share, add to series, the barbershop. Okay, cool. Oh, we're on our 23rd posted episode on Instagram, which we love. So I want to talk about some of the positives, especially with regard to some of the groups. Now, here's the cool part about a lot of these groups. If they are women only, right, and there's no talk of, sex and BBW fetishes, there's a lot to be said, in my opinion, about folks teaming up, talking about things that really hurt, talking about things that they can really, do better with regard to, and find themselves in a place where they can support one another, do great things, help one another, get through their intimate insecurities. Mandy says, no experience with bashes or large events, but I've made great connections in Facebook groups for plus size women that offer things like clothing swaps and organized meetups, and even group vacations for plus size women where you can feel safe and seen and understood. And we love that, Mandy. And that's one of the things that I would preach, is that if you're joining a group that is mostly or strictly for women, I think you're in a great place. There's a lot of women out there who want to, and that number is growing, right? Every day, right? Somebody becomes more and more body positive and self-aware and aware that their body should be not just cherished in an affectionate and sexualized way. That is not what we're talking about, right? But should be cherished in a way because it's a body, right? I'm almost of the idea that we should be body neutral, right? Like, your body houses your heart, your soul, your brain, your organs, your stuff. It gets you moving throughout the day, hopefully, right? It gets you working. It makes you money so that you can live your life. It's a body, and it deserves to be honored in a way that makes it valuable. And so many women, not just in the U.S., especially in other countries, it's sometimes even worse, are put down and hurt or preyed upon or whatever, because their bodies are bodies of size. And so to have a group where it's like, hey, you know what? We're okay here. We could do that. We could be body positive. I love that. Now, here's the funny part. I can't tell you about those groups because I'm not in them, because I can't be in them. And I think that's great, right? Like, I shouldn't be in them, right? So, there's a lot of these folks who are part of these groups. And I think it's really important that we recognize those. Now, I did some Googling while waiting for some comments to come in, and I did a little bit of searching. And of course, when I search body positive events, a lot of my pages come up, which is silly because we're not even doing events right now. But some size acceptance platforms that come up that are really, great. There's a ton of meetups. So there's meetups out there that can help you, meet other body positive women, which I love. So literally go to meetup.com, search, body positive or plus size groups, and just vet them, right? Be aware of who's in there. Now, you want to join a group that is going to have mostly women if that's what you're looking for. Look, if you're looking for a hookup or if you're looking for a date, then sure, join that group. But just understand that it's not really going to be a body positive group. It's going to be a singles mixing group, right? And there are other platforms for you to do that on, right? There's Woo Plus, there's Whisper, there's any dating app. Shoot, I mean, there's social media, right? I mean, TikTok in and of itself has become this safe haven, sort of, or at least conduit and magnet for plus size content. And so you'll find a lot of folks on there that want to talk about how beautiful you are because you're plus size. The problem is, first of all, are they cap, meaning are they fake? Or if they're not fake, are they just literally fetishizing the crap out of you? And that's a real thing that could be happening. But there's a lot of other stuff that is here that I'm seeing as well. So for example, Consumer Health Digest says the size acceptance movement is about not being at war with yourself. It's actually a pretty great read, but there's a little bit of fat bias there, but they talk about fat shaming, which is wonderful, right? Well, terrible, but they talk about it, which is wonderful, right? I found a great website called bodypositivealliance.org, bodypositivealliance.org, and you can go to some of their events. Now, here are some of the events. I love these events. I'm in favor of these events, okay? College Body Image Instagram Live with Caroline Rhodes. Love it. Now, she doesn't look to be plus size, so let's try to get some different shaped bodies there. Live performance and Q&A with body positive singer Kate Casentino. Instagram Live with body positive author Kelsey Stelting. International No Diet Day Instagram Live. Summer internship Q&A Instagram Live. Summer bodies are overrated, an Instagram Live discussion. Ebbet Bake Sale fundraiser day. Women's History Month, Instagram Live fundraiser. I mean, these are great, right? They even have stuff that's not related to necessarily the plus size movement, but like Black History Month. And if we all know, right, the body positive movement originated during the civil rights movement, actually. And it was originated by women of color who basically said, hey, you don't like my body because it's fat, but you also don't like my body because it's black. And let's talk about it. And we were not, as a country, ready to hear that. And so it saw some success and then kind of dipped in the 80s when we were all just fighting to be super skinny as a country, which is terrible. And you started to see it get picked up back in the 90s. But when it got to be picked back up, very interestingly, it got picked up mostly, yes, by black women, but mostly by white women, fat white women. Now you've seen it 30 years later. Oh God, 30 years later? God, I'm old. And no, 30? Yeah, 30. And you see that it has been adopted by not just fat white women, but straight size white women as well, and bridge size white women. And so there's a lot of controversy there. Is this the right thing, right? Are we taking this away from the core group that it was benefiting and that it was originated from? And to some extent, I do agree. But what I definitely agree with is that men getting involved with this movement, unless they are men of size and talking about their own bodies, men getting involved with this movement, in my opinion, is absolutely unnecessary. It's completely based in fetish. It's also very dangerous. It's a dangerous kind of game that they're playing that I don't know that very many women understand for sure, but I don't know everyone does. And I think the reason is that they're mistaking body positivity for what it's intended to be. It's intended to be body positivity, but what it actually is fetishizing and negative attention. And unfortunately, if you've not lived the life of a plus size woman, you truly don't have a leg to stand on, and you really don't understand the plight that a plus size woman goes through. So to start talking about body positivity as bodies that you appreciate, that's fine, but it's not body positivity. It is, in fact, a preference in plus-size women. And you can rest assured that I know what I'm talking about, because for the first 2 to 3 years of Bold magazine, I didn't quite understand the difference. And you would see me write a lot about plus-size bodies and my preference for them, but not necessarily talk about the wonderful things that these folks were doing and what was going on in the plus-size world. Now, very quickly did I adapt and figure it out and realize that body positivity is not that, but still had that bit of male gaze. So maybe it wasn't 2 to 3 years, maybe it was 6 months or a year. I don't remember. But the bottom line is I engage in it as well. And so I think that men are out there thinking that they're being body positive, or maybe not even thinking that they're being body positive, thinking that the body positivity movement applies to their preference. And it doesn't. It really doesn't. It applies to the idea that women of size have should have the space to be whom they want to be, and to be the size they want to be, and to demand the respect that they have earned by being women in this country, no matter what size they are and what mobility they have and what clothing size they wear, and all these things. So many times I see on social media, somebody comes out and says something about their body, and they want to talk about, that they're getting hate for it or whatever. And you see so many hateful comments about, well, maybe you should just lose weight, you fat, blah, 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 blah. And it's really just this nasty, nasty, terrible thing to say. And that's what we're talking about. When we talk about body positivity, when we talk about weight discrimination, when we talk about these things, it's that, like, literally you can't even say anything as a woman of size and be taken seriously, or go through whatever it is that you're going through without somebody commenting on your size. You could have a post about depression, and people are going to talk about your size. I've seen this happen so many times personally in my life, where people say, oh, your girlfriend has such a pretty face, or, if only they would lose weight. And I'm like, who asked your opinion on what they should be doing with their body? We've got a comment from Andy. I've never felt more affirmed than when I met someone for brunch and was told, I scoped out the chair situation outside, little things that most people don't even think to consider when dating or being friends with a person of size. Finding a community where you're supported is life challenging. 1000%. So Mandy, guilty of that as well. So for the first, I even owned Bold, and I owned Fabu Plus, and I owned all these, we ran all these events, and it even took me a couple of years into that, more than I'd like to admit comfortably, to understand those types of questions. For example, understanding that a seatbelt extender is not a privilege, it's a necessity for some women of size. Understanding that getting into a booth on a date with a woman of size, for example, if the booth has a movable table, you might have a good shot of having a comfortable dinner. But if that booth if the table's drilled into the ground, you see, you're almost 9 times out of 10, if not 10 times out of 10, you're going to have an uncomfortable meal. And women of size are conditioned so much to not say anything, because anything that they say will be perceived as complaining or too aggressive, because women in this country are just told they're too aggressive at all times, right? That they won't say anything because they don't want to be perceived as such. They don't want to be perceived as something negative. And it's truly, it breaks my heart, because I try so hard to empower folks, and even I sometimes don't do it right? So I always have to check myself. I'll even tell you, Mandy, to that end, I was on a Southwest flight even recently, and the plane was starting to fill up, and I took the first, went through the first couple of rows. And I said, oh, maybe there's 2 seats near each other, so I'm not going to take this seat, I'm not going to take that seat. And I start looking, I go, okay, we're getting towards the back of the plane now. So I take the first seat I can, and it's next to a woman of size. And I sit next to her, and I do the worst thing. She's uncomfortable. The seat arm is up. Now, she doesn't have a sign. Sometimes on a Southwest flight, you'll have a woman with a sign, or a man with a sign, and says, I've reserved the seat. She didn't have that. So it didn't dawn on me that she might have been reserving the second seat. And maybe she wasn't, but she might have been. And so I put the arm down, and I can see immediately that she's uncomfortable, but she won't say anything. Now I'm in a really precarious situation. What do? Do I draw attention to the fact that this woman's uncomfortable, or do I sit there and make her more uncomfortable for the next 4 hours on the flight? Well, ultimately, I decided that I should raise the arm back, get out of that seat, and move to a different seat. And I myself felt mortified. How could I not think twice before sitting in that seat and putting this woman in an embarrassing situation where now I've gotten up, and clearly she's thinking exactly what I was thinking, that she was uncomfortable and I was doing that for her. Now, I'm sure she was grateful, but that gratefulness, well, I would hope that she's got the self-awareness to be grateful, but most likely she, even if she's self-aware, was also embarrassed to heck, because I shouldn't have sat down in the first place. Now, unfortunately, another guy wound up sitting there, and he was a lot skinnier than I was, so maybe that helped. But nobody really should have sat in that seat. I mean, there were enough seats on the plane to leave at least one empty seat. So, just super duper embarrassed. I shouldn't have done that. So it goes to show that even I make those mistakes, right? So Megan Mape says, I will say there's nothing more wonderful for me than someone taking the time to ask those preference questions instead of assuming. Yeah, and it's something that I try to do, and I hope I've done it with my partner. I almost always do. But taking those, asking those questions, I think can be really, really important. And here's the thing, and this is why I say this. The groups, the events, these types of things where men are involved, I don't see those questions being asked. I don't. I see a lot of, let me see your belly. Let me do this. Let me touch that. When are we going to do this? Do you want to eat a donut? Yada, yada, yada. And I think it really is a concern for me, because I don't think that men at these events and in these groups are truly looking at women as if they are human beings. And that's a man problem. It's not just a men who like women of size problem. It's a man problem. However, additionally, I think men who are attracted to women of size tend to fetishize and get away with it a lot more easily. And tell me what your thoughts are. Fetishize and get away with it a lot more easily because they can. Because any attention is good attention in a lot of these groups. And hopefully that's changing, but it's seen as good attention. And, it truly is, a problem, because, we're not differentiating the good from the bad. So there's this guy, Robbie Tripp, out there, right? And he does these rap videos. Now, and if you don't remember Robbie Tripp, let me school you a little bit on Robbie Tripp. Robbie Tripp had a meme out there that was, basically, I'm going to paraphrase, but basically, his partner, his girlfriend, it might have been his fiance at the time. If I had to just guess, probably a size 10, 12. Okay, had a little bit of baby fat, and there were some rolls in the picture. He posts a picture with them hugging or embracing, and he says, in my words, I'm going to paraphrase it, so don't sue me for defamation. Basically, I love this woman in spite of her size. No matter what she's going through and what blah, 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 I love this woman, and I love the rolls, and I love the blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, what a backwards way to say you love your wife, no matter what. So anyway, he hit some controversy. We wrote a couple articles about him, nothing huge. And he goes away for a little bit. And, he does his thing on Instagram. They do their thing on Instagram. I think her name's Sassy Red Lipstick. She's great. She's a great following. She gets some great fashion sense. And he comes to surface again on TikTok about a year ago, maybe, if that. And he's doing these rap videos about God knows what. Big Girl Banger. He wrote a song called Big Girl Banger. And it's about, you guessed it, banging big girls. And I mean, what? And I ask you this, truly. What differentiates the lyrics of that song from a hip-hop song that just says, like, I like big butts and I cannot lie, or bring me a fat girl and blah, 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 blah. And, there's a Redman Method Man song. I think it's both. I love a fat chick with a body enormous. It ain't about the weight, yo, it's how they perform it. Is that not fetishizing? Is that not internalized fat phobia? And look, I love Method Man and Redman the same as any, and it was a different time. But I didn't love that, to be honest. And we've got this guy, Robbie Tripp, who's being praised by women, some women, because he's putting these lyrics out. And that, in essence, is the problem with these body positive groups and body positive movements, is that these men are coming in and infiltrating with their very misguided message. And because they, A, don't know better, B, don't care to know better, C, if they did know better and did care to know better, really don't care about the results or the outcomes because they're getting the attention anyway, are sliding into these groups with an intention and an intention that is not body positive. It is fetishy. So what is the answer, right? So I've put together a bunch of different groups. We went to bodypositivealliance.org. There's a lot on meetup.com that you can see. There's a lot of great universities out there that are doing amazing things. Like Cornell has a body positive institute. The bodypositive.org is a nonprofit organization. The Institute for Girls Development.com just talks about being body positive. UNC has a body image group. Dove is doing a great self-esteem project. They've been doing it for years. There's Body Positive Fitness. There's a ton of great stuff. And there are a million and one ways for you to become body positive and stay body positive and get to the resources that you need and find supportive women. And I tell you, I think it's important to get supportive women in your face so that you can share and grow and learn and be the amazing human beings that you are. I think that joining a lot of these BBW mixer groups and going to these house parties and going to these 400 plus people events where, there's men out there who are just, I'm telling you, they're pushing doors open and just seeing who's in there drunk and they're doing what they want to do is disgusting. And I think it's detrimental and I think it's dangerous. And I think there's no place for that in body positivity. You can be body positive without the men in your life who are trying to get something from you. Now, unfortunately, you're getting a very biased answer from me. You're getting a very biased show from me. I really tried hard to get some folks on the show who would have some conversations with me, who would advocate for these events and advocate for these groups. And I couldn't find anybody who would want to do it. I really did try. But I want to thank everybody who thought about it. I want to thank everybody for commenting as well. And look, I'm not the end all be all. If you go to one of these events, right, here's what I'll say. Travel in groups. Don't drink too much. Try to spend more time with your girlfriends than with your guys. You can see jokers running through my podcast set, buddy. Travel in groups. Don't get too drunk. Don't focus on the men as much as you want to focus on yourself and focus on the women there. Build really positive, strong bonds with women in your life, And above all, don't take my advice because I'm a dude. And I went to those events as a dude. So find other women to give you advice on how to navigate those events and those groups properly. So thank you so much for joining the barbershop today. If I sounded like I was ranting, I probably was, but you're probably used to it anyway. You are watching WGSN-DB Going Solo Network Radio. I'm your host of the Going Bold Wednesday and of the Barbershop. I am Dr. Christopher Salute. That is the show for the night. I want to thank everybody for commenting, whether it was TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Yik Yak, Yiddle Yaddle, Fiddle Faddle, whatever you're on nowadays. Like, I don't even know anymore. Let's bring back MySpace. Thanks so much for your comments. We really do survive based on the comments and the commentary and the engagement of our listeners. And I want to just thank you for being there and thank you for hanging out with us. I'm your host, Dr. Christopher Salute. You're watching The Barbershop. That's our show for the evening. Cut.